welcome to everyone who's here to attend the Aero Global Operations training session in regards to CBM account health management and customer responsiveness. So you guys have already seen the new functionality that's rolled out for the playbook version 6.0, but the agenda for today it's threefold. So number one, I'm going to do a very high level overview of why we're here today, what the account health MOS looks like, how it's being tracked. The second thing we're going to do is we're actually going to go through a very detailed guide. And the purpose of the guide is to dig into the details. It's about a 9-page document. It won't take that long to go through, but it basically lists out, what a CBM would be doing daily, weekly, monthly. It has information about the functional areas that support you. It has information about the KPIs. The document that we review is really something for a CBM. So many of you are seasoned CBMs, and some of you have just come into Honeywell. So imagine if you have just come into Honeywell and you're in charge of a customer. It's hard without having any kind of guide or information to kind of get you up and running. And that's really what the guide is for. And then the last part of today's call is going to do an actual demo out of the customer playbook version 6.0. And during that demo is really the heart of why we're here, and it'll show you the new functionality as it relates to the account health MOS that we put together, how you would use the data in the playbook to identify the actions that we want you to go drive, and then ultimately, how the standard work and all those detailed steps are baked into your playbook so that you actually know how to execute and you know what functional areas are there to support you. So let me just check really quick. I want to see if all right. So last night when we had training, Dave Lucan kind of did a segue, but I believe he has a meeting this morning.
Unless
he's on. Oh, hey, Dave. So Dave, I don't know if you want to do a quick segue into this, and then feel free to drop because I know you've been attending the training and.
Yep. I think quickly, just for everyone, a quick intro would be. At least I went through the agenda. We've learned through the last couple of iterations of the playbook and through a lot of your help around what needs to be changed and also about what works well as far as from a process perspective. And so what Lisa's really worked on here is take areas where we've had a deep engagement with CBMs on specific accounts, really trying to drive recovery and account health and trying to document that in such a way that everyone can drive to the same end. And so what this really goes through is similar to the go-dos and then my actions in the last version, but really then building upon that with how do we do those? How do you accomplish that task? And so what's the next step? Who do you take it to? Who do you escalate to? And then even beyond that, who's escalated after something doesn't happen? So, this is really built around the standard work of every day understanding what the health is of my account, being able to see that and then take action and knowing where the next steps of action are. And some of those, even for seasoned folks, may be changing because of how we're operating now with CSO or with the sites. So really helping to document that. Certainly, as we get feedback from you, we'll continue to update and modify the process. But the real output here is that we've learned, how to do things. We're trying to make sure we drive health across the board. And so putting tools in everyone's hands to drive that across all accounts and really making sure that we all look at it and understand on a daily basis, what's happening at the account level so we can drive those recovery plans. So again, I think my expectation is that we all embrace this. We look at it, we understand. And we engage daily to understand what's happening and to make sure actions are happening within the organization to recover and to drive account health. I do get that not everything is just by tracking here it will get better, but we have seen that we make dramatic improvements by escalating and driving action throughout the factories and visibility. At the same time, there will be strategic issues that have to be dealt with, and so it'll be a combination of both of those that will get us there. But it really does help at each point to start at the account level and say, what do we need to do? Am I driving the actions internally and to start that process so that we can make sure we're escalating and addressing the issues across the board to make the accounts more healthy? And so I do think we're seeing broader improvement in certain areas. We have a long ways to go, and this bringing the data to everyone's fingertips and then making it actionable is the best way forward. So again, Lisa, if you can sort of take us through that, I think that's the key of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And today is a completely open forum, so if you have any questions, interrupt me because we want to make sure that we answer questions and we have a good, healthy dialogue around all of this. All right, so we're going to do the high-level overview. So two things. When we wanted to deploy, account health management in a consistent way across all of our CBMs, we knew that we can't just ask people to do something without trying to support or, rearrange how we do things on the back end. So there's two key things that we tried to do. We looked at the BP alignment across a BP alignment to pods, and the second thing is our CCO, our customer contact operation alignment, how they interface with the CBMs and how we can improve that. So BP alignment to pods, I think in the past, from the feedback we received from CBMs, they acted more in the capacity of an intelligent router. So when CSO escalates an order through flagging an order with a Z7, because we can't address a customer hold, we can't get a customer response, the BP team would review the Z7, they'd look at all the history, all the notes, which is a big feat, and they would try to, package that all up and then do a warm handoff with the CBM so that they had more intelligence when they were trying to address the Z7 customer hold. Now, we've decided that customer holds takes up a significant portion of what a CBM does, and so we decided to realign our BP resources and tie them to specific pods. So for example, America's Team 1, they will specifically have, John Smith, and they will always have John Smith. So the FEN CSR and the CBM, they will always know who their BP person is. And just like when we deployed the pods, it created, an intimacy within the team. It formed more of a team so that you felt like you always knew who to go to, your weekly meetings and that cadence that you had together. It was just a familiarity of being part of that same group. So the thought and the hope is that the BP person, the CBM will spend time with the BP person to get them more up to speed in terms of customer nuances, how to escalate within the customer wall. So for example, a customer non-response would get escalated to a CBM. But in this case, what we want the BP person to do is know how to escalate that within the customer wall so that it doesn't have to get escalated to the CBM. And ultimately, if you look at the goal, and this is the goal, it doesn't mean we can get there tomorrow, but the goal is that the BP resource will know enough so that they only escalate items to the CBMs related to customer disagreements, contract interpretation, and I'm missing a third one on here. It's the final decision on RAIs, return as is. And if we can get there, I think it's going to, help CBMs significantly. I'll give you one more quick example. So many times CBMs get copied, once the CSR and your customer, they're engaged in some type of question on maybe like a quote escape or the quote's just not right. Then the customer will CC the CBM and say, hey, CBM, you've got to get involved here. I mean, I can't make any traction with my CSR and we're just not going in the right direction. We're wasting time. Perfect example of where a CBM could engage their BP person and say, hey, John, I need help here. I need you to get engaged, find out what's going on with the quote. So the BP person at that point would help try to resolve that customer hold, take the ball, take the ownership. And then in addition to dealing with that operational issue so that the order can keep moving forward, the second thing is the BP person is going to collect that systemic issue. Eric, we spoke to Eric Klepper and Jeff Pikenden's on the phone, but it's key that we start tracking and storing what systemically is going on so that we can collect the data. And then Jeff's team is, really driving a lot of our strategic projects to make sure that things like that won't happen again. Because, we keep addressing the issues, we fill up the tub, and then it just keeps filling up even though we take stuff out. So, all right. The second thing is the CCO alignment. So the feedback that I got from the CBMs across all regions, which was interesting, was they were unsure how to engage our CCO team. And right now our main point of contact is Jason Wilson. They really weren't sure when they should go to him. They didn't really know what the escalation process is at an order level. And so we worked with the CCO team on two things. One, identifying the triggers so that CBMs know exactly when CSO should be engaged. So I'll give you some specific trigger examples. Part number recovery plans. That is out of CCO. The second thing is past due orders that are greater than 60 days and the estimated ship date is more than 2 weeks out. That is a specific trigger where you would take that order, review it, and make sure it's actually a good candidate for escalating to ISC. For example, if it's on customer hold, you got to deal with that first. Once you know it's a good candidate, you would escalate that to Jason and he'd put it on his tier reel, and then it gets part of the escalation process. So the second thing, what I just kind of alluded to, was the escalation path. So identifying how a CBM escalates appropriately, and then understanding, okay, once I escalate, how do I track the escalation to make sure it actually does get resolved? And we are going to go through all those details within the guide, which is the second part of the agenda, or the second piece, and then we have the third piece, which is the demo. So key takeaway, functional support, we realize that it's one thing to ask people to do something, but it's another thing to try to get things in order so that the right functional areas are there to support you and you're successful in what you do. This is just a high level in terms of what we're doing from a tracking and a scorecard perspective. And it's actually really cool, and I'm really excited about it just because obviously I like data a lot. But I think it's going to provide a good way for CBMs. At the CBM level, you'll be able to track performance and your trending week over week, but then you can roll it all the way up to the regional level. So what this what this slide is really depicting is that you have your My Actions on the customer playbook, and it shows you, what's outstanding. You then use your playbook to drive all the actions. So the standard work and the step-by-step details, all the training, it's baked into the playbook. So you use the playbook to drive your actions. But then, what good is it to really drive any action unless you are able to really track your performance and see how you're faring? And why I'm so excited is because we can do that at any level of our airline's organization. So at the CBM customer level, for those of you who have multiple customers, that's great because you can see, your week over week trending. How do my Z7s look like? How are my ESDs looking like week over week? And then for sub-region leaders, you get to do that kind of analysis for your entire team. And then at the regional level, it's going to have this really cool roll up. The two things with scorecards is that number one, we're going to have a scorecard that's week over week historical trending. And number two, there's going to be functionality probably in the next version where you can actually generate a scorecard that's as of a point in time. So like as of now, and it'll look at all these key metrics and it'll show you, how either you individually are faring or customer business directors or sub-region leaders, how your region's faring, and then the regional leaders, how you're faring. And so by generating a scorecard out of the playbook, you can take that data, you can format it, manipulate it. And my thought is you would most likely use that to really drive and, keep your team in the direction that you want to keep running.